Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're navigating some really fascinating waters, specifically the global lifeboat market. Now, you might be thinking, lifeboats, really? But honestly, trust me, once we start digging into this, you'll see how a market that seems, well, niche, it can actually offer some pretty profound insights into much larger global trends. Our deep dive today, it's based on some incredible data from the Global Lifeboat Market Forecast, 2021-2033 Growth Trends Report. So our mission is to, get beyond just the numbers, understand where this market is heading,
Yeah.
and maybe uncover some surprising things hidden in that data.
Okay, let's unpack this. Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here is exactly that point, looking at something so specific but, so critically vital like lifeboats, give you this unique lens, a lens into the broader health, the
Yeah.
expansion,
Yeah.
and the evolving safety standards of global maritime activity. It's almost like a quiet but really powerful barometer for how the world's oceans are being used.
Yeah.
And how seriously safety is actually being taken.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when we look at the big overarching global figures, uh, well, it paints a remarkably clear picture. Consistent growth. The global lifeboat market, it was worth over, what, $1.3 billion back in 2021?
That's right, 1,311 million.
And it's projected to climb steadily, reaching an impressive $2.28 billion by 2033.
Quite a jump.
Yeah, and that's a consistent global compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 4.72%.
Mhm.
Now, that kind of sustained growth year after year, it feels like it tells a bigger story, doesn't it? What does that signal to you?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, like you said,
Yeah.
this consistent upward trend, it really speaks volumes. Volumes about the sustained expansion of global shipping, increasing trade volumes, the overall vitality of maritime industries.
Hmm.
But just as crucially, I think, it highlights the continuous strengthening and global adherence to international safety regulations.
Ah, okay, so regulations play a big part.
A huge part. It applies more vessels on the water, cargo, passenger, offshore, you name it, and a non-negotiable growing commitment to ensuring safety at sea. It's not just about building more ships. It's making sure those ships are equipped properly to the highest standards.
That makes sense. That consistent global growth is compelling on its own. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. When we start looking at the different currents around the world, let's dive into that regional breakdown. Because, yeah, the global picture is strong, but the regional stories, they reveal some very different drivers, different paces.
Definitely.
Are there specific factors you immediately look for when you compare regional growth in a market like this?
Yeah, absolutely. When I look at regional data, I'm immediately trying to understand the why,
Yeah.
the why behind the numbers. Is it driven by, say, new shipbuilding activity
Mm-hmm.
or stricter enforcement of regulations that already exist?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the expansion of specific sectors, like cruise tourism, big one there, or even, geopolitical shifts that impact trade routes. These underlying currents, they often dictate which regions become the real growth powerhouses.
Okay. And speaking of powerhouses, our data points pretty unequivocally to Asia Pacific,
No.
largest and fastest growing market.
Indeed, it really jumps off the page. Asia Pacific's market, it was nearly $500 million back in 2021, and it's projected to almost double by 2033.
Wow.
Yeah, and it boasts the highest regional AGR among all continents, over 5.3%.
Over 5.3. Okay.
And within this really dynamic region, China leads in just sheer market size, of course. But India is truly the growth superstar here.
Really? How so?
Well, India is projected to basically double its market value, showcasing an astonishing KGR of almost 5.83%.
5.83%.
Yeah, that's the highest individual country growth rate we see in the entire report.
That's incredible. What does that tell us about India specifically?
Well, this kind of accelerated growth, it's probably not just about general maritime activity. It really hints at significant investments, maybe port expansion, new shipbuilding, and perhaps even a really rapid modernization of its whole maritime safety infrastructure. Things are moving fast there.
Wow, India really is accelerating at an astonishing rate. And okay, so China and India are the giants, but the rest of Asia Pacific, it also shows strong growth, right? It's not just those two.
No, absolutely not. It's broad-based. You look at Japan, Singapore, South Korea, even Southeast Asia looked at as a whole. We see consistent expansion right across the board, ranging from around 4% up to over 4.6% CAGR.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very dynamic, very multifaceted region.
Yeah, it really underscores its pivotal role in global maritime trade, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so moving across the globe, North America,
Yeah.
What's the story there? Seems like more of a solid, mature foundation.
That's a good way to put it. Solid foundation.
Its contribution was around, what, $375 million dollars in 2021?
Yep, 375.3.
And it's set to grow significantly to over $613 million dollars by 2033. That's a steady 4.29% CAGR.
So what's the story here,
Right.
given its, established maritime presence?
Well, within North America, the U.S., predictably, drives the bulk of the market, represents over 80% of the regional value, and it's growing at a solid 4.2%, consistent.
Right.
But what's kind of intriguing, if you look closely, is Canada. It's actually showing a slightly faster rate of expansion, nearly 4.7% CGR.
Oh, interesting. Why might that be?
Well, this difference, it's small, but it might reflect maybe specific investments in Canada's offshore energy sector, or perhaps the modernization of its coastal fleets, something specific pushing it slightly higher.
Yep.
And Mexico also contributes robust growth, too, around 4.5% CAGR. So it aligns with that overall regional stability, solid, steady growth.
Got it. Okay, solid North America. What about Europe? It's a huge maritime hub, obviously, but lots of different economies, long-standing traditions. Are we seeing similar consistent growth there, or is it more varied? It's definitely more varied. Europe's market, currently over $285 million. It's expected to grow to nearly $477 million by 2033. That's a respectable overall CAGR, about 4.5%.
Okay.
But what's really notable here is the variation in growth rates across the continent. It
Yeah.
reflects its really diverse maritime industries.
Right.
Germany stands out. It's the strongest within Europe, growing robustly at almost 5% TAGR.
Nearly 5% for Germany.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which probably indicates a strong commitment to maritime safety within its large shipping and manufacturing sectors. The UK also shows solid growth, nearly 4.8%, so
Yeah.
quite strong too.
Okay. And you mentioned diverse speeds. Are there examples maybe of more moderate growth or maybe surprisingly high growth in other parts of Europe?
Exactly. So on the more moderate side, you look at a country like France, it shows a slower pace, just under 3.9% CAGR, which highlights those regional variations, maybe different fleet renewal cycles or regulatory shifts timing. But interestingly, what's categorized as rest of Europe, so grouping many other countries together, that category collectively shows the highest growth within the continent, over 5.3% CAGR.
Wow. Higher than Germany or the UK even?
Higher than Germany, yeah. It suggests that maybe smaller, perhaps emerging maritime hubs or niche industries across various other European nations, they're collectively driving significant demand, perhaps for specialized vessels or, new port developments.
That rest of Europe figure is fascinating. It really shows how these broad categories can sometimes hide interesting individual stories, but collectively they add up.
Precisely.
Okay, now let's look south. South America. The report suggests some surprising momentum there.
Yeah, South America's market, it's smaller in absolute terms, sure, but it's poised for really remarkable growth, projected to nearly double, from about $78 million in 2021 to over $166 million by 2033.
Doubling.
Yeah,
Okay.
with a robust 4.9% CAGR overall for the region.
Okay.
That signals a pretty vibrant developing maritime landscape down there.
And where's that growth concentrated? Any standouts?
Brazil is a key player, definitely, growing at over 5% CAGR.
Strong.
But Colombia is exhibiting an even higher CAGR, just over 5.06%.
Okay. Colombia edging out Brazil slightly there. Why Colombia, do you think?
Well, this kind of acceleration, especially starting from a smaller base,
Huh?
it could be indicative of maybe burgeoning trade routes, increased resource extraction activities offshore, or maybe significant investments in port infrastructure that, necessitate modern safety equipment.
Right. Development driving safety needs.
Exactly. And similar to Europe, that rest of South America category, it actually has the highest CAGR in the region again, over 5.08%.
Interesting pattern.
Yeah, again, pointing to that collective development happening across maybe smaller economies or specific sectors.
Okay. Fascinating stuff in South America. Now let's turn our attention to the Middle East. The data here shows a somewhat steadier pace, right? Maybe more foundational.
Yeah, steadier is a good word, foundational. The Middle East market, it started around $57 million, projected to reach about $88 million by 2033. It has the lowest regional CGR overall, just over 3.1%,
Okay, 3.1%.
which reflects, I think, a more mature, stable market there.
Yeah.
It's driven less by rapid expansion, perhaps, and more by just ongoing maintenance replacement cycles, and maybe specific fleet modernization projects in established maritime operations. Oil and gas, shipping hubs.
Makes sense. Who leads there?
Saudi Arabia is the largest market in the region, growing at about 3.1%. But the UAE actually shows the highest growth within the Middle East, over 3.5% CGR.
Ah, okay. Reflecting its hub status.
Possibly, yeah. Reflecting its role as a major global shipping and logistics hub, needs to keep things up to date.
It's really interesting how different regions show such varied growth dynamics,
Hmm.
and how a lower CGR, like in the Middle East, doesn't necessarily mean stagnant, just
Hmm.
different, a different kind of healthy market.
Exactly. Different drivers, different stages of development.
Okay, finally, let's wrap up our regional tour with Africa, showing some promising emerging growth. Is that right?
That's right. Emerging is the key word. Africa's market started around $33 million in 2021. It's projected to grow to over $52 million by 2033. That's at a 3.64% CAGR.
Okay.
So while it's currently the smallest regional market in absolute dollar terms,
Hmm.
it definitely represents significant future potential.
And within Africa, where's the activity concentrated?
Nigeria is a leading country there, growing at nearly 3.85% CAGR, likely driven by its expanding energy sector, offshore activities, and port developments.
Uh-huh.
South Africa also contributes significantly, highlighting, more established maritime activities on the continent. So this emerging growth we see in Africa, it suggests future investments coming down the line: infrastructure, trade, resource development, all of which will increasingly require robust safety measures, including lifeboats.
Okay. So, if we step back now, take a breath from all these detailed numbers and projections, the overall finding seems really clear, doesn't it? We're looking at a consistent, pretty significant global growth trend in this market. It's impacting nearly all regions, most major countries.
Yeah, it's broad base.
It's definitely not a flash in the pan. It feels like a deeply rooted long-term trend. So, what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Yeah, I think this raises an important question for you to maybe mull over. What underlying factors, things like increasing global maritime traffic,
Hmm.
or the continuous strengthening and maybe more universal adoption of stricter safety regulations, or even the steady expansion of cruise tourism and other passenger shipping, which of these might be the most significant contributors to this consistent global growth in safety equipment that we're seeing? And how do these numbers ultimately reflect a broader, maybe enduring commitment to safety at sea? What does that tell us about global priorities for, well, responsible maritime activity in the decades to come? Something to think about. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that, well, it might seem a bit niche at first, but honestly, it's incredibly vital and full of surprising innovations, too. We're talking about the evolving world of maritime lifeboat safety.
Hmm.
We've been looking through some really insightful market research, specifically from cognitive market research.
Right.
And our mission today is basically to pull out the most important bits about what's really driving this market, the big challenges it's facing, and also the sort of cutting-edge trends shaping its future.
It's definitely more than just boats.
Exactly. It's about safety, critical safety, relentless innovation, and even how environmental responsibility is kind of reshaping this fundamental part of shipping. We want to give you that shortcut to being really informed here.
Yeah, and it's a field where, every single advancement can directly impact people's lives, not to mention how ships operate day to day. It's a great example of how rules, tech, and money all weave together. There's definitely more going on than you might think initially.
Okay, so let's unpack that then. Lifeboats, their basic role in safety is obvious, right? But what's really pushing the global market forward right now? Beyond just needing them, what are the strong currents driving growth?
Well, the primary drivers are quite compelling, actually. Firstly, there's a definite rise in the enforcement of safety standards globally.
Enforcement, okay.
Yeah, and what's interesting is how incidents at sea, sometimes even things that seem minor, can very quickly lead to widespread regulatory pressure. Bodies like the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, they're constantly refining and imposing new rules. And this directly pushes manufacturers and ship operators not just to comply, but really to develop much safer, much more efficient evacuation systems.
So that pressure from regulations is clearly a huge factor. But it's not just about meeting rules, is it? Are manufacturers just reacting, or are they actively pushing things forward themselves?
That's a really good point. And what's fascinating here is how technological innovation from the manufacturers is creating this sort of positive feedback loop.
Mhm.
These advancements, things like advanced materials, better designs, smarter ways to actually deploy the lifeboats,
Mm.
they're not just about ticking boxes for regulations, they're about exceeding those standards. And that gives them real competitive advantages. It's like a constant race to improve.
Makes sense.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, there's this growing interest in environmentally sustainable solutions across the whole maritime industry.
Right, the green shift.
Exactly. As shipping aims for greener practices, lifeboat makers are responding. They're integrating eco-friendly materials, trying to reduce their environmental footprint. This focus on sustainability, it's not just optional anymore, it's actually boosting demand for the next generation of safety gear as companies look for these, holistic, greener solutions overall.
Okay, so this drive for innovation, better compliance, greener solutions,
Yeah.
it's all sounds incredibly positive, but big changes often come with challenges, right? Are there hidden costs or hurdles the industry is facing?
You've hit on a really critical point there.
Yes.
One of the biggest constraints is, frankly, the high investment cost.
Ah, the money.
Yeah. To meet these tough compliance standards and to actually develop and implement all the innovative tech we just talked about, well, it takes serious capital. We're talking R&D, manufacturing these complex systems, and then the whole certification process. It's steep.
When you say steep capital, I mean, are we talking prohibitive for some?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that actually mean for the industry's ability to grow sustainably? Does it squeeze out smaller players, maybe? Or lead to more consolidation?
That's an excellent question. And these financial pressures, they definitely act as a barrier. The research implies pretty strongly that these costs can hinder smaller companies. It makes it harder for them to enter the market or even just expand. And it can slow down how quickly new technologies get adopted, particularly in, say, lower budget sectors.
Right.
So what it means is that things like strategic collaboration, maybe partnerships, and really efficient resource management become absolutely essential, crucial really, for sustainable growth in what is, let's face it, a very competitive market.
So finding clever ways to work together, essentially.
Exactly. Sharing the burden, optimizing how things are done, just getting the most impact to keep everything moving forward safely.
Okay, so moving from the sort of current pressures, let's look ahead. What does the horizon look like for lifeboat technology itself? What kind of intelligent safety features are really changing the game?
Well, this is where it gets really exciting, I think. These intelligent safety technologies are genuinely redefining what these lifeboats can do. Things that sounded like sci-fi not long ago.
Like what?
Okay, so think about IoT-enabled sensors, basically giving the lifeboat a digital voice.
Right.
These sensors can collect and send back real-time data, information on the lifeboat's condition, its exact location, maybe even monitoring the condition of the people inside, sending that back to shore or the main ship. That's huge for coordinating rescues.
Wow.
Then you have AI-powered navigation systems. No longer just theory. They can analyze real-time sea conditions, currents, even debris fields to figure out the safest and quickest escape route. That dramatically improves the chances of reaching safety. Combine that with advanced real-time monitoring tools, and you're looking at a massive leap in safety performance.
And materials too, right?
Mhm.
We're moving beyond just traditional steel. I keep hearing about composites and things.
Absolutely spot on. Yeah, there's a very clear shift away from the old steel designs towards lightweight, corrosion-resistant materials, things like carbon fiber, advanced composites.
And the benefit there is.
Well, they don't just last longer and resist the harsh marine environment better. They also make the lifeboats lighter, more efficient, and crucially easier and faster to deploy.
Makes sense. What else is trending?
Other key things. Automated deployment mechanisms are a big one. Taking human error out of the equation during really high-stress emergencies is vital. We're also seeing electric and hybrid lifeboats really gaining traction. That's driven by the wider push for zero-emission vessels and greener shipping overall.
Uh-huh.
And for places where space is tight, like offshore platforms or big cruise ships, inflatable and modular designs are becoming more popular. They're just really practical for quick deployment and saving space.
Interesting. Now, something like the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
You'd instinctively think an event like that would just slam the brakes on everything, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But the research suggests it was actually, well, more nuanced for the lifeboat market.
It really was not straightforward at all. I mean, yes, initially the global lockdowns definitely disrupted shipbuilding, slowed down maritime activity in general. So fewer new lifeboat installations were happening.
Right, that makes sense.
But, and this is the crucial part, the pandemic also massively underlined the absolute need for robust safety measures, for emergency preparedness on all vessels. It brought it right to the forefront.
Ah, so it highlighted the need.
Exactly. And that led to this unexpected surge in demand for lifeboat retrofitting and maintenance. Vessels that might have put off upgrades suddenly made them a priority. Plus, there was a much sharper focus on efficient evacuation systems and even health-related safety protocols on board. So, yeah, in a strange way, it exposed vulnerabilities, but also spurred essential investment in the existing fleet. It kind of reinforced how vital this market is.
So if we sort of wrap all this up, it sounds like the maritime lifeboat market is, well, anything but static. It really feels like it's moving towards a future that's smarter, more sustainable, and definitely more driven by regulations.
It does, and it raises an interesting point, doesn't it? How does an industry like this, with such a long history, keep innovating so quickly and adapt to completely new pressures like environmental impact? It really shows that innovation is just baked into the core of this industry. It has to constantly adapt to meet today's safety challenges while also aligning with these bigger global environmental goals. It's a continuous evolution, really.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, doesn't it? Consider how even in something seemingly as established as maritime safety, you have this constant push from compliance, from innovation, from sustainability,
Yeah.
just constantly reshaping what's even possible. And look how quickly these vital technologies are evolving, all to protect lives and now the environment too. It prompts the question, what other industries might be going through similar, maybe less obvious transformations, where the everyday, the seemingly mundane, is actually right at the cutting edge of technology and ethical shifts. Definitely something to keep exploring these fascinating intersections of technology and regulation in places you might not expect.